Hello there everyone, how are you doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel. And believe it or not, this was not the actual video that I planned on making for you guys this morning and hopefully posting later today. I was initially planning on discussing some of the Nintendo next generation console, Switch 2, Switch Pro kind of conversations that are going around out there. Not so much rumor territory, more just the overall idea of what's happening there and my opinions on the possibility of next-gen Nintendo hardware. But, as per usual on this channel, Metroid news comes back and sucks me back in, and it's almost impossible for me to get away from Metroid-related stuff, which I don't mind, and I don't think you guys mind either. And, of course, I'm here to cover Metroid stuff, and we got this awesome update about some of the sales for Metroid Dread, which is very important. We were all waiting for and anticipating these numbers. We got some details. It's mostly pretty great news, and I want to break that down for you guys today. Before we jump into the Metroid Dread sales news today, I like to remind you guys I'm always trying to grow the channel here on Rule of Two Review. I upload every single week. I cover all things Nintendo. I obviously cover all things Metroid, and I discuss all things gaming. So as you watch this video, if you seem to like what I'm doing and what you hear, then I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel. So as I discussed on my last video, we have finally hit the 1 month anniversary of Metroid Dread. It has now been over an entire month since the game finally came out. After 19 years of waiting and wondering if we would ever even see a Metroid 5, and after, I don't know, 14, 15 years of wondering if that Metroid Dread thing from way back in the day was actually real, it turned out that both were real, both became the same thing. Metroid Dread became Metroid 5, and the game was both revealed this year and then finally released on October 8th. It's blown everyone's mind. Almost everyone that's played it has loved it, and finally Metroid feels back. It feels popular. It feels loved again. We're getting great Metroid content and Metroid products. We're still eagerly awaiting news on Metroid Prime 4, and so for us Metroid fans, it's a great time to be alive. But of course, one of the biggest and most important factors to Metroid Dread, beyond just the game itself existing and being really good, is the sales, is the fact that the renewed interest in Metroid is something that we all hoped meant the revival of the Metroid franchise, the continuation of Samus's adventures and the Metroid name and series. And it seemed like with the excitement around Metroid Dread coming back, with the insane popularity of the Switch and all of the great sales that first-party games have on the Switch, it felt like the right time for Metroid to finally come back and become popular like it used to be, and maybe be quote-unquote saved from potentially going away forever, right? I mean, that was the worry for a lot of Metroid fans, that the series is known for being some of the best games ever made in the history of video games, but it's never been a massive seller, especially for a first-party Nintendo franchise, where you look at games like Mario, Zelda, Smash Bros., Mario Kart, Pokemon, Animal Crossing, these series that do massive, insane, record-breaking numbers. And Metroid, while being the same quality, if not better than most of those, has never been in the same echelon of sales. And so we've kind of worried that, you know, with games like Metroid Prime Federation Force coming out and being underwhelming and not exciting and not selling well, or the divisiveness over Metroid Other M back in 2010, if we were seeing signs that Metroid might just go away forever. But Metroid Dread seemed to represent the sales savior of the franchise. And so this morning we finally got some sales numbers from Nintendo, which is very exciting. So let's recap some of that. Doug Bowser, of course, from Nintendo was talking to The Verge. Benji Sales on Twitter, which is a great dude and a very reliable source for these numbers, kind of summarized some of these numbers in his tweet. And here is what he said from, Nintendo PR. So in the month of October, the Switch sold 711,000 units just in the United States, okay? And of those, 314,000 were the Switch OLED, which of course also released on October 8th. So almost half the sales would have been the Switch OLED in the month of October, which is very good. And then here's the good stuff. So initially he says Metroid Dread sold a huge 845,000 units in just the US launch month. And of course, Doug Bowser reminds everyone that is the best start for any Metroid game ever, the fastest selling Metroid game of all time. However, Benji actually clarified that he misreported the Metroid numbers And in fact, it's actually 854,000. You can see right here. He says, oops, Dread is 854K because he made a typo and swapped the two numbers. So all in all, this means great things, I think, for the start for Metroid Dread. We're looking at only the United States. We are looking at only the month of October, where again, Metroid Dread released on October 8th. The first complete 7-day week of the month is not included here. So in only 3 weeks, and in only the United States, which granted is the biggest territory for game sales on the planet, but still, in only one of the major territories, it did 854,000 units in 3 weeks, one territory, almost 1 million units just in the United States alone. In fact, there's a great chance that if maybe this game launched on October 1st, and it had the entire 31 days of the month, there's a great chance in the United States alone they could have reported 1 million units worth of sales. That is crazy. And so for me, when I look at these sales numbers, I think that there is no doubt in my mind that in the month of October, the 3 weeks worth of sales data that could be reported worldwide, I would bet almost everything I have that the game has sold well over 1 million units worldwide. It only needs 150,000 more units to be sold just in the United States alone to cross 1 million. So the rest of the world, UK, Japan, Australia, all of these other territories, I guarantee you they sold hundreds of thousands worth of copies of Metroid Dread worldwide. So I mean, I'm only speculating here, there's no data, but I would think 1.2 to 1.5 million worldwide is probably what it's done just in the month of October. Today is November 12th, which means there's been almost 2 weeks worth of November to account for as well. For all we know, this thing could be sitting at 1.7, maybe even 2 million worldwide by now. Again, I am making those numbers up, so don't go crazy thinking that, these are hard numbers to go by, but I mean, think of the popularity of this series and the hype around Metroid Dread. And at this point, being November 12th, it's been over 4 weeks, over a full month. There's a great chance that this thing is already knocking on the door of 2 million units of sales. And so even if we lowball that, and let's say November 12th, what would be the lowest possible sales at this point? I mean, I would probably say 1.4 to 1.5 worldwide sales would be the lowest end right now, just over a month after release. And so overall, this is great, you guys. Let's get down to brass tacks here. These are very strong numbers. It's not a Smash Brothers game. It's not a Pokemon game. It's not a Mario game. So yeah, it would have been nice to see that it sold 3 to 5 million units just in the first 3 weeks. Its launch month. Yes, that would be great, but Metroid, even with the massive hype for Dread, it was never going to do that, and no one ever expected it to. But Doug Bowser and Nintendo already stated this is the fastest best-selling launch month for a Metroid game ever, surpassing Metroid Prime, the best-selling Metroid game of all time. So there is no reason to think in today's age, where the gaming industry and the gaming audience is bigger than it's ever been, and the internet and YouTube and social media helps push and hype up games that are of high quality, and Nintendo's evergreen game sales that already exist for its first-party stuff, there's no reason to think that this game doesn't have another 2 to 4 million worth of sales over the course of its life, if not maybe even more. Now, of course, it's worth noting that a huge reason for this conversation over the past few months is actually kind of a funny thing that I think a lot of us have been having a lot of fun with. And it's RGT85, who's actually a good friend of mine. He's a great buddy, really great dude. I love the guy. I love you, Sean. He's very famously made a bet that Metroid Dread wouldn't even sell 3 million units, and that if it did sell more than 3 million units, he would play the game Balan Wonderland or Wonderworld, whatever that game is called, which is very famously not good, but made by developers that Sean is a big fan of. And so everyone has been having fun kind of following that story and poking fun at Sean and, is Metroid Dread going to sell more than 3 million units? Is Sean going to have to play Balan Wonderland and all of this stuff? And I think it's really fun. I think everyone's just having a gas and a goof with it all. And so, Sean, I'm not really invested in whether or not you have to play Balan Wonderland or not. I guess I hope you don't have to, because I don't think you want to. But I think that that's been a big part of the conversation, at least on the internet and on Twitter, that everyone's had about 3 million Metroid Dread sales. So I'm not super invested in that. I'm curious to see how that all plays out. And like I said, we're all just having fun with that whole thing. But I think if we step aside from the whole RGT, Balan Wonderland, Metroid thing, we just look at Metroid Dread. And to me, I see a game that is destined to cross that 3 million unit threshold that most of us placed on this game when it was announced. You know, for many reasons, one of them being the fact that the best-selling Metroid game of all time, Metroid Prime, is, if memory serves me, somewhere in the realm of like 2.7 or so million units lifetime. It did not cross 3 million sales. And so at this point, Metroid Dread selling 3 million makes it the most successful Metroid game of all time, makes it a success just within its own right, because 3 million units of sales is good for any kind of game in any kind of series, and potentially says it could have more to go. And if Metroid Dread could be the most successful Metroid game of all time, I guarantee you it's already made a ton of profit alone just with these first 3 weeks' numbers. Then that means that the Metroid series is finally on its way back to being known for being one of the most popular and successful franchises like it used to be in the 90s. And this is what us Metroid fans want to see. We want to see a strong, bright, healthy future for Metroid and for Samus. And this also tees up Metroid Prime 4 perfectly to become the next biggest Metroid game of all time. And I absolutely think Metroid Prime 4 is going to crush it. I think Prime 4 will crush the sales of Metroid Dread. Whether or not it's the better game, it's too early to say, but I do think the hype will be bigger. I think it's going to look better than Metroid Dread, and this already is like one of the best games I've ever played. And so by the time we come back to Prime 4, coming off of these massive sales and success of Dread, I mean, basically, like I said, the future for Metroid is looking really, really bright. And so that's how I see these first Metroid Dread sales numbers. It's great to see. We love the strong sales. There's no doubt in my mind this game has already smashed the 1 million unit barrier in just a month's time. And so for me, there's no doubt that 3 million, that's coming our way, man. And so Sean, my man Sean, you might as well get prepared to play that Balan game that I guess is really terrible. I played the demo. I hated the demo, so I sure as hell didn't play it. I was not a fan of that game via the demo, so I guess we'll all wait and see, man, but I think we know that Metroid Dread is going to be a bona fide hit, which is great for us fans of Metroid and Samus. So that's what I have to say about this today. What do you guys think about the sales numbers, my personal breakdown, Sean's prediction of less than 3 million units? Is he going to play the game? Is he not? All that different stuff. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.